ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀਓ ਕਿਰਪਾਂਤ ਹਰਿਯੰ ਮਤ ਤਤ ਗਿਆਨੰ ਬਿਗਸੀਦਿ ਬੁੱਧਾ ਕੁਸਲ ਥਾਨੰ ਬਸਿਅੰਤ ਰਿਖਿਯੰ ਤਿਆਗਮਾਨੰ ਸੀਤਲੰਤ ਹਿਰਦਯੰ ਦਿਰੜ ਸੰਤ ਗਿਆਨੰ ਰਹੰਤ ਜਨਮੰ ਹਰ ਦਰਸ ਲੀਣਾ ਬਾਜੰਤ ਨਾਨਕ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਬੀਣਾ ਬਾਜੰਤ ਨਾਨਕ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਬੀਣਾ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। So Sangat ji, we've all just listened to Guru Arjan Dev Ji Paatshahji's Bani from Bani called Salok Sehaskriti. Today we'll be going through, this is the 8th part, and we've all just heard the 13th slok by Guru Arjan Dev Ji. Satguru Ji Paatshah Ji Guru Arjan Dev Ji saying to us that Kirpant comes from the word kirpa. Kirpa meaning that Vaheguru Ji's mercy, that Vaheguru Ji's kirpa comes from compassion. So from Vaheguru Ji's compassion, Haryang is a word for Vaheguru, for God, saying so that compassion of Vaheguru Kirpant Haryang, and then what happens? Only if they bless us, only if they shower us with their grace. So the word kirpa literally translates to grace, but it all comes from compassion. So first there's mercy, then there's grace. Kirpa is that shakti, that power, that's something that can only happen to us through Vaheguru Ji's power. So kirpant haryang mat tat gyanang, and what is that? They're saying that if Vaheguru Ji does their kirpa on us, showers their grace on us, what will happen? Ke mat tat gyanang. And what that is, Sangat Ji, is mat means our mind, tat means the essence, and gyan means knowledge. So he's saying that our mind will well up with the true understanding, with the true knowledge. And what that means is the true knowledge, the true understanding. So there's one thing when we're trying to understand something through our intellect, and that is how we do that is all the information that we receive through our senses. So just like when we go to school, we sit there and a teacher goes through something from the board. I was going to say blackboard, and because that's what there was during my days, and I know nowadays it's all whiteboards and you've got your projectors. So they go through, they give you information. So what they're doing is they're giving you that wisdom, and then we make sense of it. So it goes in through our ears, and we're looking at it with our eyes, we make sense of it, and we come to some sort of understanding through our intellect. But this is different. This is talking about Tat Gyan. Tat Gyan is their knowledge, is when Guru Sahib Ji does their kirpa on us, and then only then can we realize the truth. Realizing the truth meaning realizing Vaheguru Ji. So we actually are able to see beyond and see past that what is temporary, all those things that we've been going through in the previous kathas. So just like we have in Sri Japji Sahib, that those stages, so we have Saramkhand, then we have, so starts from Dharmakhand, Gyan Khand, then we have Sarmakhand, and then we have Karmakhand, and then we have Sachkhand. So in that same way, this what Paatshah Ji is saying to us, that Kirpant is the Karmakhand. Karmakhand, if we look at it from Arabic, it means bakshish, so it means blessing. So only with Guruji's grace, so Karmakhand, can we reach Sachkhand. Sachkhand means the realm of truth, and this is what this is, that when the mind wells up with the true knowledge of this, of the Creator. And then Paatshah Ji say to us, can they, once that happens with that Vaheguru Ji's kirpa, can they big seed there? Big seed there means when something blossoms. So just like that season of spring and all the flowers start to blossom, Guru Sahib Ji say in that way, then what will blossom? Big seed there, Buddha. Buddha means your intellect will then start blossoming. And it will go where? Kusala Thanang. Thanang means place. And what place will you go to within your own buddhi as well? Kusal. Kusal means to that place of bliss, that eternal happiness, when everything, when you're just at absolute peace, when you feel centered, focused, there's no up and down. And what does it mean for our buddhi, to go intellect to blossom? So think about this now. You know, when we're in doubt and we're confused and we're trying to work it all out. So there's one thing, so we're trying to think, oh, what is God? What is all this creation? I don't get it, you know. Was there anything? Was there such thing as life before birth? Is this whole reincarnation thing? What is karam? What is this whole philosophy about karma? And we're all confused, not getting anything. So our buddhi in that point isn't blossoming. That means our buddhi is working so hard trying to get it all, but those things, the essence, the reality of Waheguruji, of what is eternal, we can never understand it. We're trying to working it out with a buddhi. So what happens is, it's like when everything, you know, when you can see off somebody's face and they're really stressed out because they're trying to really work something out. But Guru Sahib Ji said, Gante Prabhu na paiye duje parmita. You're there, you're still stuck in duality. Duje parmita. Gante Prabhu na paiye. You're trying to there calculate everything for yourself. That cannot happen. Once Waheguruji's grace happens, and then you're enlightened, and that you actually then realize the truth, then the intellect doesn't have to work hard to try and work everything out. Then it's full, it's blossoming. So then it's like it can breathe and it can think, it makes sense now. All that time I was wrecking my head. Now everything's falling into place. Everything makes sense now. So that's what Big Siddhya is. On the other side, then there's obviously a functioning of the intellect itself, just to understand the functioning of physical things. So then Satguru Ji Paat Ji say to us, Basyant Rikhyang. Rikhyang means Indriya. Indriya meaning our senses, those sense organs. So referring to then Basyant means koi cheez apne bas aajani. So bas aajani means when something comes under our control. Then Satguru Ji saying all this happens with Waheguruji's grace. Once I enter Saramkhand, once I enter that humility, then flows in Waheguruji's grace. Waheguruji's grace gives me the true understanding of existence, and then my intellect starts to blossom from that. What is happening now? When all my senses have now come under control. So now, before it was my eyes controlling me, when it was supposed to be me controlling my eyes. My eyes, meaning, so my sight sense, it was actually looking at something without even then me having any control over it. It was going in the information that it was collecting, my eyes. So it's a Gyan Indri. So Gyan Indri means something that gives me wisdom, and then it was corrupting my mind. I had no control over it because of what type of things it was looking at. It was looking at the beauty of another. It was looking at Praya Darb, looking at things that weren't mine, that I wanted them to become mine. I had no control over them. They were completely crazy. So now I've started to control them. I now tell my eyes, I'm reining them, saying, look, okay, so now whatever you're looking at, you see that now to be your sister. You see that now to be like your mother. So they've come into my control. Tyag, and then Tyag Manang. And then once I let go of my pride, stuck in that, being stuck in arrogance, and once my Indriya came into control with God's grace, and then that's why now, Kusal, that's why I'm now experiencing peace. That's why I'm experiencing Anand, bliss, because it was these senses that wasn't letting me experience any bliss before. And then Pachi kende Sitalang Hridayang, and my Rida means heart, and now my heart has become Sital. Sital means when something becomes calm. So Sital, actually Sital translates literally to when when something becomes really cool. But it doesn't mean that the temperature of heart's cool. It means that our heart is now completely relaxed and calm. Because we don't realize that when we're in turmoil and in anxiety, it's all because our intellect is in overdrive trying to work everything out. These ears, because of all the things that they're consuming, the things that we're listening to, hearing not under our control, they're completely running wild. We're not getting to actually just relax and just feel at peace. So now our heart becomes calm. And then where was it that this gyan, where did this kirpa happen for me? Where did this whole grace, where did it take place? Where I was able to, this true understanding, where did I get it from? From the Sants. It always goes back. Whenever you look at these sloks, it always goes back to the Sants. And Sangji, sometimes you'll see this word here, Sant, translated to Gurbani. And what I will say is Sant translated to the Guru, and then yes, we can translate it like that, especially if the tatta had an onkar underneath it, making it singular, but it hasn't. So I'm not saying that arth can't be done, because the truth is, there's this in no way at all is this undermining Gurbani. This is actually saying how high Gurbani is, how pavitr Gurbani is. The truth is that Gurbani is where it's come from and where Guru Sahib Ji is speaking from. See, even me now, what I'm translating is just my little understanding and my interpretation. But the truth is that even though there's many people, we know there's many granthis out there that are doing a Khand Paats upon Khand Paats every week at Gurdwara, but we'll still witness and see that there's some that have a very lowly character, but they're reading Gurbani. So when Satguruji Patji here is pointing us back to the saints, these are those saints that actually have lived their life accordingly to Gurbani, because they did Sangat of a Sant. So for example, like you had Baba Ishar Singh Ji, their whole life was about Gurbani. But how did they get to the essence of Gurbani? Was through serving Baba Nand Singh Ji. Because Baba Nand Singh Ji had become the form of Gurbani. Satguruji say that this Bani is something that we become. Satgur ki Bani Sat Swarup hai Gurbani Baniye. Satguruji Patji say to us very straight, Kende Satgur ki Bani, the word of the Guru, of the true Guru, Satguru ki Bani, what is it? Sat Swarup hai. This is actually the form of that true Vaheguruji. Kende is Sat da kende Swarupaya. Kende so this is the form of that true Vaheguruji. Kende Sat Swarupaya Gurbani Baniye. And now what is our job? Our job is to become this Bani. So there were those Mahapurukhs that became the Bani. For example, like Baba Nand Singh Ji, who is besotted by Guru Nanak Dev Ji so much that they would do Chaur Sahib to Guru Granth Sahib Ji all night. And some people will say that, we shouldn't be glorifying these Mahapurukhs. But Sangji, if we want to see true love for Guru Granth Sahib Ji, we see through these Mahapurukhs. Once that they took Guru Granth Sahib Ji Patji's words so literally, and that Guru Sahib Ji is actually speaking to them. There was one time that when Baba Ishar Singh Ji was in Seva, and Baba Ji made prashada, got food ready for Baba Nand Singh Ji, and it wasn't during the normal time. Baba Ishar Singh Ji thought from their mind that they'll do something extra for Baba Nand Singh Ji, they prepared prashada for them, ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਐਨ ਚੋਪੜਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ. So they buttered the roti, the chapati, really drenched it in butter. And when Baba Ishwar Singh Ji brought it forward for Baba Nand Singh Ji, somebody was doing kirtan. There was kirtan going on in the background, and Baba Nand Singh Ji heard a pankti where Bhagat Farid Ji saying in the Frida Rukhi Sukhi Khaye Ka Thanda Pani Piyo. Kende where Bhagat Farid Ji was saying Rukhi Sukhi Khaye Ka. So they were saying that eat that food, kende Rukhi Sukhi Khaye Ka Thanda Pani Piyo. Even though, Sangat Ji, some people will argue this actually means something else. It means to remain in a avastha, in a state of mind of remaining satisfied and content from inside, and not actually being jealous of looking at when your next door neighbors have got more than you, or somebody else has got more, and then you think, oh, I wish I had that. But Gurbani also can be literal as well. So Baba Nand Singh Ji, that was in so much love and took they never even said the word Guru Granth Sahib Ji, because an istri means a wife. A wife traditionally she would have so much satkar and so much respect and take her husband as the actual Parmeshwar Roop. She would take her husband as the form of God. She would never say her husband's name. And then, so Baba Nand Singh Ji would never say Guru Granth Sahib Ji, because they were like that bride to their Pati Parameshwar Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Sangat Ji, we sometimes say, Mahapurkhan diye kyun gallan karde hain? Why are we speaking about these Mahapurkhs? How else are we going to get to be inspired of having that love for the Guru's Bani? So Sangat Ji, some people say the Guru's Bani is just Gyan. This is just mere wisdom for us. But if we just think this is just mere wisdom, we'll end up having that relationship with it, not having any respect for Gurbani, because then we'll just take it for wisdom, just like a maths teacher passes on some information to us. We'll just take it as a piece of information that we might need to get by in life. But no, Baba Nand Singh Ji showed us this is my Guru, and when you treat Guru Granth Sahib Ji like that, then there's much more of a chance of actually us living by the Guru's word. And Baba Nand Singh Ji looked at that prashad that was all drenched in that butter, and ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰੁੱਖੀ ਸੁੱਖੀ ਖਾਏ ਖੈ ਠੰਡਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਪੀਓ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਪਤੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ my husband Lord ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੇਰੇ Guru Nanak, my Guru Nanak in the form of here ਕਹਿੰਦੇ Bhagat Farid Ji ਕਹਿੰਦੇ saying to me ਕਹਿੰਦੇ eat something that is dry. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਛੱਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦਾ, I'm not able to ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ eat this at this time. This is how taking. And then coming back to this, Guru Sahib Ji keeps pointing us back to the sants. And here, these are those sants. Baba Ishwar Singh Ji would always do bhajan. They would say at the end of each dwan, at the end of when Baba Ji would give upadesh, when they would translate and do Gurmat upadesh through Gurbani, when they would spread the message of Gurbani, Baba Ishwar Singh Ji would always say at the end, they would say that Guru Sada kende Tan Tan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੰਗਤ ਕਰੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਬਾਹ ਫੜ ਕੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੇ ਪੱਲੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਫੜਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਡੂ ਸੰਗਤ ਆਫ ਦੋਜ਼, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਸਟ ਲਾਈਕ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਰਜਨ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਸੇ ਟੂ ਅਸ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੋ ਪੱਲੇ ਟੈਂਡੇ ਲਾਗੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਸਤਤ ਨਾਨਕ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਸੇਇੰਗ ਟੂ ਅਸ ਇਨ ਦਿਸ ਬਾਣੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਸਤਤ ਨਿੰਦਾ ਨਾਨਕ ਜੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਹੱਬ ਵੰਜਾਈ ਛੋੜਿਆ ਹੱਬ ਕਿਚ ਤਿਆਗੀ, ਹੱਬੇ ਸਾਕ ਕੁੜਾਵੇ ਡਿੱਠੇ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ I see everyone else to be false, meaning that I understand now that everyone else, all my other relations in this world are temporary, and they can only give me so much. They can tell me about the world. Yes, they can give me good sikhya, but to palle tande lagi. Baba Ishwar Singh Ji would say, now I have attached myself to the hem of your robe. And so those Baba Ishwar Singh Ji ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਖ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਪੱਲਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਧੰਨ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜ ਦੇਣ, those that connect you to Guru Granth Sahib Ji, those are the ones that you do sangat of. And over here Guru Arjan Dev Ji Paatshah Ji is telling us that, ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਧੰਨ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਰਜਨ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀਤਲੰਤ ਰਿਦਯੰ ਦਿਰੜ ਸੰਤ ਗਿਆਨੰ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ only in the company of saints, of those true saints, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ you will get that gyan, that the true essence of knowledge, of realization instilled inside of you. ਫਿਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰਹੰਤ ਜਨਮੰ, ਰਹੰਤ means ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰਹਿਤ, ਰਹਿਤ means that will come to an end for you. You will go beyond now. What? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰਹੰਤ ਜਨਮੰ, of that cycle of birth and death. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰਹੰਤ ਜਨਮੰ ਹਰ ਦਰਸ ਲੀਣਾ. And remember, Sangat ji, there's many people that do actually company Mahapurkhs and do Sangat of Mahapurkhs, but there's not many, like Baba Mani Singh ji Smedikawale would say, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਕੋਈ ਵਿਰਲੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੱਥ ਵਿੱਚ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਦੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੰਗੀ ਵੇਖੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਅਸਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ. Baba Mani Singh ji would say, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ I've only seen throughout my life, and they lived up to I think it was 37 or 38, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ I've only seen very few that have actually done sangat of a Mahapurkh. Meaning they said, and I think they said something like about 10 or 11 people they've ever seen. And we know there's thousands of people that would be sitting in the charan of Mahapurkh, but just like they would say, just like Sant Singh Maskeen Singh ji would say, kende you're going to find many trees, kende but amongst millions of trees, kende you're going to only find a very few where you get to experience and see and smell it and take in the fragrance of the tree of a sandalwood. Let's ask ourselves, how many times have we seen a sandalwood tree? Not many times. So this is just in that way. Kende, if you've got 1,000 sangat sitting there, I might be getting the numbers slightly wrong, but this was their example. It's about the example. It's not about the accuracy of the numbers here. They said if you've got 1,000 people sitting there, they would say, this says out of them you may have 10 that are actually jagyasus, that are got that inside yearning. I've got that hope inside to actually, that got that to awaken from inside. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤਾਂ 10 ਜਗਿਆਸੂਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵਿਰਲੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੋਈ only a few out of those will you actually find that are actually a sant, that are true saint. So Baba Mani Singh ji would say there's only very few that have taken faida of a Mahapurkh, because even when we do end up going to sants, we've got many worldly desires that we want completed in our life, and that's why we still don't get the gyan, that realization of God. So but once you get that realization, then there's no cycle of birth and death for you, and then you are constantly absorbed in the darshan, in the vision of Hari, of Waheguru ji. Bajant Nanak Shabd Beena. Bajant means something is now playing inside of us. Beena can also be translated, it can be translated to a flute. And they're saying now that what you can hear, what's being played inside of you now is that flute of the Shabad. And this here is not the Guru's teachings now talking about. This is talking about Anhat Shabad. That Shabad, that is not, that sound that is not created with two things being clashing together. Because that's how all sounds come together. But there's a sound that Anhat, that is called the unstruck sound. So they're saying, now there's that unstruck sound inside of you, meaning that sound that all the creation has come from, that sound that is behind sustaining, that sound, that vibration that is behind that destroying, creating, sustaining, that is inside of us. And then we connect to that sound, and the Anhat and the Anand, the bliss of that is said to be beyond any type of thought and any explanation. And what is the nishani? There's many people that actually think that they are hearing that Anhad Shabad, but actually it's the avastha, the state that they've reached isn't actually Anhat Shabad. So they're hearing different sounds and thinking that they've reached that avastha. But Satguru Ji Pachi said to us, kende panch shabad tit ghar sabhage sabad vaje. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਵੱਜਦਾ ਆ ਨਾ, the way that shabad, that vibration of anhat, that unstruck sound is when those that have connected to it now, then that shabad, vaje panch sabtit kar sapage shabad vaje kala jit kar dhariyan, panch doot tudvas kite kaal kantak marya. Mahapurukh there was a Mahapurukh saying, many people have come to me and saying, I can hear the anhat shabad inside of me now. But they said when you see their lives, they still completely, they haven't got any control over their 5 thieves. They're still completely full of desire, worldly desires, kaam, krodh, still getting angry. And then this Mahapurukh said, no, you've not reached that avastha yet of anhat shabad. So they're saying, panch doot tud vas kite. Once you reach there, kar sapage sabd vaje. Jadon andar shabd da sare de andar oh lagatar vajda ya. That it's resounding inside of all of us. But only those that become connected to it, in tune with it. Once you're in tune with it, then your whole life becomes a song. Your whole life becomes in sync with Waheguruji's will. And everything now becomes blissful for you. But the nishani, the sign of that is now you've got actually control over your panch chor, those 5 thieves, the kaam, the desires, krodh, the anger, lobh, greed, more attachment and pride. So here, then Sadhguruji, Guru Arjan Dev Ji, Pach Ji go on now to the 14th slok, and they say Kahant Veda. So over here, Veda here means the Veds, the 4 Vedas, which are the original Hindu scriptures, and the oldest one being Rig Veda. So these are written in the Sanskrit language, and they say that the gyan of this, the knowledge of this, was passed to rishis, to great meditators, who then verbally passed on this knowledge that came to them directly from inside, and then later on that passed on knowledge was scribed and written down. So they said Kahant Veda, there's many people that Kahant meaning utter and recite, or this can be translated to explain the gyan, the knowledge of these Veds. So Sadhguruji Pachaji in the previous slok tells us about Tat Gyan, the wisdom, meaning realization. But here they're talking about when we're trying to intellectually understand scriptures. Kahant Veda, Gunant Guniya. Guniya translates to scholars, those that are well learned in the Veds. So over here for us, so we can make it relatable, it doesn't necessarily have to be just the Vedas. For somebody, that could be any other religious text as well. It could be the Bible, it could be whatever, you could think of that for yourself, for whatever you can relate to. Kahant Veda, Gunant Guniya. Gunant means that vichar kardeya, that they contemplate it. And then Sunant Bala, just come back to that bit, then just going to translate, because this bit here, Bahobid Prakara, this goes with the last part. Bahobid means in various different ways. Prakara means ways. Bidhi also means ways. Baho means in many ways. In many different ways, they do what? Gunant. They vichar and they try and understand what the Veds are saying. Because remember, until we haven't had realization of Waheguruji, until then we have to try and work out, maybe it means this, or it could mean that. And we've got some form of experience to some level of spirituality, just like we was talking about the Anhad Shabad. And some people say during their journey of meditation, they start to hear certain instruments within themselves. It's like they can constantly hear kirtan and different instruments being played. Some people hear a flute. Some people describe these 5 different type of instruments, even though a lot of people according to Gurmat of the word panch, they've translated to prapanch, something meaning the highest, panch shabad meaning the highest shabad, which for us is anhad. Somebody came to Paisa Pai Randir Singh once, and they've spoke about it, they've written this in one of their books, and in there they came to Pai Randir Singh and they said, I do abhyas in this way, I do meditation in this way. he said, I draw a black dot on the wall just so I can concentrate. And he says, as I keep looking at that black dot, he said, I read Sukhmani Sai Bani. And he said, and now he goes, I've reached that avastha of Anhat Shabad. And he said that I can, and Bhai Sahib Ji said, tell me about your experience. And he said, he goes, I can hear these different types of instruments inside of me, and then these different types of sounds inside of me. And he goes, that black dot, it starts to light up. And he went through all these different type of experiences. He goes, but still, I feel a little that as if something's missing yet. And Bhai Sahib Bhai Ranveer Singh said, he said, I haven't, he goes, in my journey, he goes, of reaching that avastha of entering Dasam Dwar of the 10th gate and having experienced in that ecstasy and bliss that cannot come into description of any words. They said, I don't recall of those type of sounds that you're referring to. And they say, and then Bhai Sahib Ji wrote themselves, Bhai Ranveer Singh writes themselves, they say then that night they meditated in a certain way, not to their usual way, and they said that they couldn't still hear any of those sounds when they took their surti up to the Dasam Dwar. And then they said, Bhai Sahib Ji, they started to bring their surti, their consciousness lower and lower. And they said as they started to bring it lower back into this, to the closer to the physical realm, and then they said they could hear all those sounds. And then when he came back and Bhai Sahib Bhai Ranveer Singh told him, he said, look, he goes, you are still floating around in a lot lower avasthas, a lot lower states of mind. And then Bhai Sahib Ji told him not to use any focal point, and they gave him a few tips and guidance of what to do to actually connect to the actual Anhad Shabad that Gurbani talks about. So then Satguru Ji, Guru Arjan Dev Ji, Pacha Ji, they talk about here, so that for some people, if they've not experienced that, then it's a mere interpretation of their own intellect. So they're saying Kahant Beda. So most people here that are translating these scriptures of this great knowledge, but they're doing it based on, they have to do it Bhaubid Prakara in so many different ways because they've not quite understood it themselves. So they're saying that Sonant Bala, and then the Bala, the disciples, are listening to all of this. And then Pachaji says, Kende Diradant Subidya Har Har Kripala. Kende, but Guru Arjan Dev Ji Pachaji says, Kende, but for Subidya, Kende, for that Vidya, for that true wisdom, meaning that realization, like I said, I always find that that's a better word so it doesn't kind of mislead anyone. So means Sresht, the highest form of knowledge, meaning that of self-realization, Diraranta, that is instilled in us. How can they Har Har Kirpala, through meditation of Naam, then Kirpala, then Vaheguru Ji gives us their blessing and their Kirpa. So meaning this is all about here, is all about Naam Simran. So it's about Naam Simran, and yes, that all these, some people think that they can do it just from mere, just understanding something intellectually, but no, so everything's gonna have its place, meaning they go both, naal chaldiyan hai donne cheejan, eh do sade vaste eh khamb ne. So for us, these are two wings that help us to fly. So normally we say Seva Simran, that's serving selflessly and meditation. But alongside that, on one side as well, is we need the vichar. So we need to contemplate the Guru's teachings. But to understand the Guru's teachings from a place of experience, we need Naam Simran. So we need to meditate on Naam that's given to us by the Guru, and then Vaheguru Ji will do the Kirpa, and then Vaheguru Ji, through Vaheguru Ji's blessings, will we get to experience So Bidya, the actual Sresht, the highest form of wisdom, meaning realization. And then Pachis kende Naam Dan Janchat Nanak Dan Har Gur Gopala. Kende, then so that's why. So if that, it's the meditation on Naam that actually gets us to have the true understanding of something. So then they say Naam Dan the gift, dan means gift, the gift of naam, of the meditation on God's name. Jachant means to beg. Guru Arjan Dev Ji Paatshah Ji say, so then, continuously beg, then har Guru Gopala, beg for the name of God. From who? From then har, to the gift, from the giver. And who is the giver? Is Guru Gopala. That Guru, that for us is God. So for us, how do we take our Guru? We take our Guru as God. That's the shraddha we put in our Guru. So we say constantly to Hey Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji, tusi hi Rab Roopya mere vaste, you are the form of God for me. And Hey Guru Nanak Paatshah Ji, I beg you to bless me with the naam. And then Guru Arjan Dev Ji Paatshah Ji, and then in the 15th slok, Paatshah Ji saying, chinta comes, is the word, chinta means anxiety. So we have worry and we have anxiety. So worry is quite, if I want to put it this way, if we look at it, it could be quite normal. It's not something that somebody is consumed by. So let's have an example. If a teenager, for example, has gone out and then the mother is waiting for that teenager at home, and then that teenager gets a little bit late coming home, the child, and then they start to worry a little bit and thinking, oh, ghar nahi aayi hale, not back yet. Wonder if she's alright, if he's okay. So then they have that little bit of worry. And that is quite normal for people to have that within their mind. But anxiety is completely different. Anxiety is something that we become consumed by, that now it becomes uncontrollable. Anxiety is something that then starts to even affect our life in our everyday functioning of life. It actually starts to hinder our normal routine of what we might do, even the way we eat, of what we eat, when we get up, in even having a shower. It affects everything in our life. It's something that then becomes constant. Sometimes anxiety consumes us to that point that we don't even know what we're anxious about anymore, but we just feel anxious. And then what happens is, and then that anxiousness, it spills over into everything. So then it's the nature of it is that they'll grab onto one thing and then we think, no, it's just this, obviously. Then we try and justify in our mind that this, I need to be a little anxious about this situation. But then the pattern is they'll drop that and then they'll grab onto something else. So it actually becomes then a disease, a mental health. It becomes a mental health issue. So then Paatshah Ji saying, कहने लगे इथे गुरु अर्जन देव जी मेरे सच्चे पातशाह कहंदे नह चिंता, कहंदे to not have that anxiety and that constant thought going round and round within our mind of what? Of mata, of your mother. So some people might be constantly worried about their mother. They might be thinking, Acha meri, I wonder if mum's alright. You know what? Mum was complaining about having chest pains. I wonder if she's going to be alright. And then being worried could be quite part of our normal functioning. So it can give us that little push and drive to say, alright, we need to kick into gear. We need to do something about this. I need to help mum here. I need to help her to change her diet. I need to take her on regular walks. But then it starts to hinder our actual life, and we wake up and that's all that's going round and round in our head. Oh, what about mum? Is mum gonna have a heart attack now? Is she gonna have to have a bypass operation? Then what happens now if she eats even a little bit of this? And then it starts to consume us to the point where we can't function. We can't actually now, we can't concentrate anymore. And those that have had experiences of anxiety, then they can't focus and concentrate anymore. They're trying to read something, they're doing their work, and then it's just literally, it's like it all becomes blurred and they can't really take it in anymore. So it's just going completely over their head. So they're thinking, and then that's when it becomes a problem, because now it's actually creating a problem. And they're saying that it costs businesses throughout, even in this country, they're saying millions of pounds, because people get into this anxiousness of worrying about constantly having anxiety of different things, and then they go off sick. They're not able to actually carry out their work, and they're sometimes off for months, or if they are at work, they keep making mistakes. So then this is the type of chinta Bart is talking about here. So now I've explained it for one relation, and now it's your job at home to put it into whatever relation you can actually relate to, or if somebody does actually suffer with actual anxiety disorder. Anxiety disorder is it's general anxiety, which could be for anything, and then you'll actually pick up the patterns here, that how you've probably gone through it with various, and whenever I go through all the other things, you'll think, yeah, I can relate to that as well, I can relate to that as well. So ne chinta mat, then pita, then being constantly anxious, having anxiety and thinking about your father, prate, your siblings. And then ne chinta, some people are always worried about, they think that, oh, pata nahi meri behen da vyah ho jaga, is my sister going to be able to get married? What happens if I can't find her a rishta, and then my father's not with us anymore? And these are real life situations that are serious situations, and these are situations that people are in. But Pachaji, let's see where Pachaji is going to take us, because they're going to give us some therapy about this situation here. Then Pachaji will say to us, Neh chinta kach lok kaha. Then they're saying that Neh chinta, they don't always be consumed about what lok kaha. Lok kaha is what people are saying. Kach, whatever they are saying, jo bhi kehde ne. And we know now, this is a massive problem in Punjabi culture. One thing, people are not able to live. Why? Ji tere mamme nu pata lag gaya, wo ki kahega? Say if your mama finds out. But say if that you know what, but if you're going to marry out of caste, lok ki kehnage. Do you know that one, don't you? You Punjabis are you're all familiar with all these sayings and terms. So I often think that my Veer Pricharan Singh ji that is listening and helping out, that I always think that he's probably thinking, I ain't got a clue what you're on about, because he's grown up in quite an English way, well, what shall I say, Scottish way, grew up in Scotland, and probably didn't get to experience that level of Punjabi culture, and normally I think he's probably getting bored thinking, nah, what you on about? But if you was to experience like the hardcore Punjabi culture, and somebody like me that's gone through it, and I remember my dad saying to me as I was growing up, he would say, "Put koi nahi." He goes, "Look," he goes, I'm quite flexy with you, hana? He goes, I'm quite relaxed with you. He goes, "Je vyah karona ya." He goes, "Tu das dahi, if you do find your own partner in life." He says, so when I was growing up, we weren't following Sikhi, and it was very just Punjabi-fied family background. And my dad would say, he goes, "Look, so if you do find someone, just make sure you let me know, and so don't try and like hide it from us and do your own thing, and we'll sort it." And I thought, all right, wicked. And he says, "But," I was like, "Oh, okay, what's the but?" And he says, "But," he goes, "as long as they are this caste, all good." And he said, even, and he would say, "Don't worry, even if she's a Gauri, then that's cool. So even if she's an English girl, that's okay." He goes, "But," he goes, "make sure she's not this and this caste." He's not that way inclined now, but like I said, we all grew up very Punjabi-fied, and Guru's Kirpa, we're not in that place now. So, and then he would say, "But it can't be these two castes." And I'm like, "What?" And I was like, "But Dad, why?" And this is when I was back like 15, 16. And I say, "Dad, why?" He goes, "Karke," he goes, "Lok ki kehnage." And I remember going to this talk once about a Benji that had a really difficult time growing up, and she actually moved out of home because of domestic violence, and she does this amazing inspirational talks now throughout up and down the country at different schools, and the whole talks about lok ki kehnge, because that's what actually destroyed her life, about constantly being consumed in the anxiety of what other people are going to say. So now every little decision in the household ends up getting based on lok ki kehnge, what will people say, what will such and such say. And that can actually, believe it or not, absolutely ruin people's lives. So many people end up becoming depressed and even suicidal to that extreme. So when Satguru Ji Pachaji is saying to us here, ne chinta, they said don't end up getting caught up in anxiety about other people, what they say, because Guru Sahib Ji knows that having that anxiety, constantly being consumed about what the world's going to say, they said it can actually take somebody's life. It can take them, because anxiety often eventually turns into depression for many people. So this is actual proven. And if you look at if you do your own study, you'll see there's a pattern. If somebody's suffering with anxiety, there's a huge chance it can turn into depression. So then what is the difference between anxiety and depression? Depression is a constant form of low mood and constantly beating yourself up and being negative about things. And when a low mood is when you've got no motivation to actually do anything in your life as well, when getting out of bed. So the way anxiety might not let you get out of bed is different to depression. Anxiety might not let you get out of bed because there's this fear inside, but you're not sure what that fear is. You're scared of something, and sometimes you're conscious about what the fear is, and that's not allowing you. But the difference is depression doesn't allow you to get out of bed because you think, what's the point to anything? What's the point to life? I don't want to be here anymore. I've got no motivation for anything anymore. You don't see a light. You can't see a future. You can't see that I want to do this with my life. I want to become that. There's nothing. And then so Sangat Ji, Guru Sahib Ji here is saving us. Kende chinta ne chinta kach lok keh. Kende ne chinta banita. Don't be consumed by anxiety over your banita, over your wife, over your voti. And that could be of so many things. Constantly worried. Oh my God, ita bahar jandi rendi hai. She's constantly going out. I wonder what she's up to. I wonder if she's she's been speaking to such and such a bit too much recently. And then constantly consumed by all these crazy things in your head and being worried about. Or it could be something positive. Just like the mother, you worried about her health, or whatever. And then sutta means your children, and this is a big one. So many parents, and me being a parent myself, and I remember when I was, when I really kind of embraced Gurbani and got into Sikhi, changed the way even my whole appearance. I've always had case and my head case and a dadi. I've only trimmed my dadi a few times in my life, but most of the time I had my dadi. But when I say, I mean when I used to tie the other type of the star and just wear clothes a certain way. And when I kind of embraced Sikhi to a slightly different level, whatever level Guru Sahib Ji knows. And I remember a lot of my relatives would say, "Nay, you're too extreme. You're just obsessed now with this whole Sikhi stuff." And they says, "You know what? You'll find out when you get married, and you'll change." And then when I didn't change when I got married, then they say, "No, don't worry. You watch. We know when you get your own house and you've got the responsibilities of mortgage and everything. You watch. You'll change. You won't be just so Barney all the time." And then they said, then it didn't happen. And they said, "All right, you know what? You watch." They said, "But when you when you have children," they said, you'll definitely change then when you have children." And then I had kids, and then obviously it was I still had that relationship with Gurbani, because when it comes to having kids, and yes, I've got to say, the more the attachment is a lot more crazier, and you can feel yourself kind of getting stuck in that mud. And the moment they say that, you know, that they're not well and something starts happening inside, ki hoya, and you're right, and you do go into this a bit of panic mode, and you've got to be really cautious. You've got to be really conscious that it doesn't turn into anxiety when they become your constant worry and you're in constant fear. Soon as they get a little bit bamad and you think, oh my God, and you start jumping to the extremes and think, oh my God, I hope it's not like meningitis if they've got a fever, and you start checking their body. I'm not saying we shouldn't be careful, but then there's that level when it starts to consume us. And a lot of us do get consumed with anxiousness about kids. So Guru Sahib ji saying, don't, that is actually taking you away from life and living. So that neh comes for everything, so that's why I've just put it like that. So they're saying neh sut says don't have that neh chinta, so don't be consumed by anxiety for your children, mite, for your friends. Then Path ji ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪਰਵਿਰਤ ਮਾਇਆ ਸੰਬੰਧਨ. Guru Sahib ji saying, I'm saying that to you as a warning. So this here just alone could be very powerful therapy for us now. So those of us that it might not be extreme levels of anxiety, it could be just that you're a constant worrier, and it's not that it's a mental health condition or problem for you, but you're always worrying. So but here it could be a very powerful, just like somebody goes to a professional therapist and they use their ways of it for somebody, for especially if it's something like, you know, anxiety disorders, they use CBT, which is where it concentrates on your cognitive behavior therapy of the way the cognitives work in your brain, the patterns, and it's really powerful, it's really helpful, to be honest. And so never ever think that Baljit Singh is ever saying to anyone to avoid any of these type of therapies. I myself has been through CBT and I found it to be a very powerful tool. So, but this is therapy for us as well. This alone can awaken us. Pachi saying parvirta Maya Sambandhana means the relations. It said what we've got to remember is all these relations that we have in our life, parvirta, but if we allow them and we become very obsessive about them, parvirtya can mean obsessive, and we get so entangled with them, but what we've got to remember is what we've just got entangled with is Maya Roop, meaning all these things are not permanent. All these things are not going to remain. These very people that we are getting so anxious and worried about, they might not even stick it out with us themselves. They might turn it's not to say, yes, to be unconditional and not to have anything, expectation to have anything back, but letting them consume and have anxiety over them when they're not even, they could be gone one day. Because they might die, obviously that's the obvious, but they might completely have a flip change of mind where they've gone off us, meaning like where they've had an argument and they leave us and they're not even a part of our lives anymore. And we've allowed that something that could be so temporary instead of having that unconditional love for them. Because remember, in love is described in a beautiful way by somebody. This is in love, this says your hands are open. This says you're free like a bird. And this says, but in love there is no pain, there's no suffering. So that's how can we start answering our own questions to say, how do I know if I'm in love or if I'm in attachment? In love there's no pain, even if that person isn't there no longer. It's unconditional, it's free, you let them go if they want to go. But in attachment you're like this, you're holding on to something, it's painful, you experience suffering and anxiety over that. So Path ji saying, so kende innu gall nu yaad rakho, kende all these things are temporary, they're Maya Roop. And then Path ji kende Diyal ek Bhagwan Purkha, kende when that Vaheguru ji Diyal is, they shower us with their mercy, with their kindness, with their compassion. Kende ek Bhagwan, that one Vaheguru ji Purkha being Nanak Guru Arjan Dev ji Pachi saying, kende Sarb ji Pratpalaka, kende that one that actually takes care of Pratapalke, that one is sustaining and taking care of all life. And we end up becoming, thinking we are the creator, and we are if it wasn't for us, then that's it, they wouldn't exist, they'd fall apart. And we take that job of Waheguruji thinking, no, I need to worry about them, and I need to make sure that they're okay. That doesn't mean not to serve your family and parents, and doesn't mean not to see that they're okay. But Guru Sahib Ji saying, remember, there's somebody greater than you that is in control, that provides to you as well, and that is the one that is the sustainer. So then Paatshah Ji here, just to do Akri Arth now of the next slok, where Guru Arjan Dev Ji Paatshah kende Anitya. So Nit means something that is constant, something that remains forever, something that is eternal, but they're saying Anitya. But they're saying, what is Anitya? Anitya is something that is temporary. So they're saying here that Vitt comes from the word wealth. They're saying all the wealth that you are actually earning and building up, that's all temporary. Anitya Vittang. And even the satisfaction that this wealth gives you is all temporary. It's not going to be eternal. It's only we've seen there's many millionaires that actually one day think this hasn't done it for me. And we hear stories, I can't remember, I think there was one where it's something to do with the monk with the Ferrari, where he kind of left all his riches and he went off to the Himalaya mountains. Why? Because he didn't find anything in there. So it says Anitya Vitang. So there we go, that's the book. The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, bestseller book. Thank you, Virji. So then it's Anitya Vitang, wealth is temporary. And then Anitya Chitang. Chitang means, and then the consciousness, meaning having all our chit, meaning being all our focus goes on that wealth, is temporary as well. Because if that wealth doesn't remain, then all that concentration on that Maya isn't going to remain as well. That's temporary as well. Anitya Chitang, Anitya Asa, Baho Bid Prakarang. All these asa, all these hopes that you've got, how to accumulate wealth, in all these different ways, Baho Bid Prakarang, they're all temporary as well. One day, all these hopes are going to have to come to an end. And then again, Anitya Hetang, over here, it's underneath the nun now, okay? Anitya Hetang Ahang Bandang. So Paatshah Ji is saying here, temporary is as well, your Hetang, your attachment. And Paatshah Ji, where is all this coming from? All this attachment that you've got to this wealth, where is it all coming from? Ahang Bandang, because you've been bounded now by what? By ahang, by the disease of ego, of I am. Paramamaya, of having I am, not realizing your true self and thinking you're separate to Waheguruji. Now you're in Param, you're in doubt, lost, wondering in Paramamaya, of thinking this illusion, all this is what is temporary. You think this to be true and what is going to satisfy you and to be permanent. But remember, it's never going to satisfy us. And because of the chase of that wealth and because of our ego, and then malanang bikarang, you end up doing bikarang, such actions, and you end up doing actions that are completely malanang, that are filthy, that are impure. Then your ways, and you start sinning, and you're doing such things that are so lowly. Then Franta Jon Aneka Jatanagan, then Jataragan, then what will happen to you? You will end up Firanta, you will end up Jon, going round and round in circles in where Anek Jataragan. Jataragan refers to that heat that is in your mother's womb. You'll end up in countless times back into that heat that exists within your mother's womb. So we know here, Guru Sahib Ji, this can be not translated any other way. So if there's anyone out there that is saying that our Guru doesn't talk about reincarnation and coming back into other forms, this cannot be translated any other way. They're saying Firant means going round and round, in Jawn, in that cycle of birth and death, anek, countless times, and you're back into the womb where that heat exists. Jataragan, Neh, how can they, why has all that happened to you? Because Neh Simranta Maleen Buddhyang, because you have not meditated on God's name. You have not remembered, lived in the remembrance of God, lived in that loving fear for God, of experiencing Waheguru to be forever present, Maleen Buddhyang. Then what happens is, your Buddhyang, your intellect, becomes completely maleen. Maleen means, Sangat ji, when something becomes completely impure and dirty. Can they, Hey Gobind, they're saying, Oh Waheguru ji, Kartamaya, shower me with your kindness, with your mercy. Nanak, Guru Arjan Dev Ji Paat Singh, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪਤਿਤ ਉਦਾਹਰਣ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ save this sinner, ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗ ਮੈਂ, there you go, back to, where do I need to go? Into the company of the ਸਾਧs, into the company of those holy saints. So ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, ਇਤਨੀ ਇੱਕ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਹੈ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਨ, एक नहीं पर अनेਕਾਂ ही ਗਲਤੀਆਂ ਹੋ ਗਈਆਂ ਹਨ, ਅਣਜਾਣ ਬੱਚਾ ਸਮਝ ਕੇ ਬਖਸ਼ ਦਿਓ. Forgive me for all my mistakes. So let's do ਅਰਦਾਸ to Satguru ji. Hey Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paat ji, take me, and when the time is right for me, when I need that, because first I just need to do my karams, I need to just follow my Guru's rahat, just do my nitnem and wake up and restrain from any form of intoxications, make sure that I'm being a good boy, good girl, no adultery, doing all these basic things. But when then we start getting ready and really desperate for meeting God, and then Guru Sahib Ji, then those ardasan, and we keep begging, and then Guru Sahib Ji will unite us with a true saint who has become the form of Gurbani, and that true saint will help us to get that sublime wisdom of realization of God. So Sangat Ji, itni ek benti pravan. So forgive me for all my mistakes. Let's all say Fateh. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.